Good evening and welcome back to the Great Late MQ Update, where we will continue to try and make sense of this godforsaken world we now live in. I'm Beans Cox and I'll be your host this beautiful evening. Although, with all this asynchronous bullshit, it is very likely the middle of the afternoon. Or 4 in the morning if you're like me and time isn't real. First, we turn to non-essential workers, the part of the labor force that keep Americans chugging along at a snail's pace. Certain states have begun to reopen hair salons, bars, and plenty of other things you probably shouldn't be going to in a pandemic. Despite warnings from health officials, many Americans are welcoming the ability to risk their lives to sit in a booth at their local Denny's instead of getting it to go, proving that the protests against staying at home were never truly about getting back to work, and instead were more about the ability to yell at service workers, degrade the working class, and give theater kids their safe haven to unsolicitedly sing Phantom of the Opera. Meanwhile, President Trump has continued the honorable fight for the rights of ordinary Americans in the face of prohibitory social distancing measures. In responses to anti-quarantine demonstrations in Minnesota, California, and Virginia, President Trump expressed vocal support for Americans' right to protest for their right to die of COVID. He has also endeavored to protect First Amendment rights by interrupting reporters to silence questions about his administration's handling of the crisis.
In the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President,
come on.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his
Well, I'm
butt
not a
like
big
the rest
fan of
us.
yours either. So,
Government
I
to
do.
find
I do.
you.
Let me tell you about the
Were there
trouble.
any mistakes in
wait.
that?
Over the course
Okay,
of the...
just sit down, please. You
Miles
know what?
away. That's
I
not
think
an
you
invasion.
should, honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings
Let
would
me
be
ask
much
if
better.
Future press briefings have slotted at 5 p.m. on Eastern weekdays as a part of a recent initiative. When asked for comment about the change, President Trump cited Jimmy Buffet. Jimmy said it's always 5 o'clock somewhere. Trump then attempted to offer a reporter a sip of his margarita, seemingly unworried about spreading infection. Finally tonight, we turn our report over to our on-field reporter, Matthew Miltimore, who is currently preparing for an interview with former Vice President Joe Biden.
Thanks, Beans. The day of reckoning will come shortly. It'll be swift and sweeping, but the wounds it creates will fester and burn for ages. I am, of course, speaking about the 2020 presidential election. Here to discuss the current state of affairs is presumed Democratic nominee and former Vice President Joe Biden. Former Vice President, are you ready? Former Vice President, are you there? Well, unfortunately, it looks like Joe Biden couldn't make it.
My name's Joe Biden.
Oh, hello. Thank you for being here.
Maureen, are you there?
Can you hear me?
No.
Wait, here, just click raise hand if you can hear me.
No man has a right to raise a hand.
Okay. I'm just going to move on to the first question.
The answer is yes.
You haven't even heard the question.
I made a mistake.
Oh, okay. Well, here it is. Last Friday, many essential workers went on strike to protest unsafe working conditions amid the COVID-19 pandemic. These included employees of large corporations like Target, Whole Foods, and Amazon. How would you address these labor conditions?
The Amazon is burning because they're trying to clear the Amazon in order to make money in agriculture.
Oh no, that's the wrong Amazon.
And I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours.
All right, let's just move on. In recent years, former Vice President, it looks like you're sharing your screen.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
I'm not lying. We can all see your screen.
Give me a break.
All right, fine. That'll about do it anyways. But before we let you go, now that you may have clinched the nomination, do you have any idea about who you might pick as your vice president?
I actually like Dick Cheney for real. I get on with him. I think he's a decent man.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for your time, former Vice President. Goodbye.
I don't plan on saying goodbye.
Alrighty. Thank you, former Vice President. Back to you, Beans.
Thanks, Matt. And on that note, we will conclude our show for the evening. Thank you all for joining us. Tune in next week where we will interview the UFOs and ask if the FBI agents are good kissers. Am I right, ladies? And just on one final note tonight, we want to remind you all to stay safe out there. You know, there's a lot of talk going around, and we just want to make sure that all of our viewers are, following proper protocol and listening to our president, hearing what he has to say, and most importantly, staying safe. Cheers.